In today's video, we're going to talk about everything we learned about the new Kill Team Tomb World at the Warhammer Big Summer Preview, which was on Friday. It's now Sunday. I've been busy. I was at a tournament on Saturday. It's a whole thing, but here we go. Hopefully, this is more analysis, more considered. You let me know in the comments. So, first of all, the big news, in case you've been living under a rock, Kill Team Tomb World is coming. We're getting a big black box, looks like this. Really like the art on this box, I have to say, with the one Necron face looking out and then the Death Watch. I think it looks really cool, and I also want to say I really applaud Games Workshop for for the narrative pairing and the narrative setting that makes a lot of sense. A lot of previous boxes, the narrative's been pretty skin deep. Like, if we go back to this time last year, not last year, but this time last edition, when Gallowdark first came out, and it was like, cool, we're going to have a Space Hulk type setup, and we're going to have some Imperial Navy guys, and then who are they going to be fighting against? It could have been something really thematic, like a Gene Stealers or Gene Stealer Cult or something, and it was just Kroot, and Kroot felt a bit random, and they always felt a bit out of place on the on the spaceship, right? And it got a bit worse from there, right? Arbites versus Dark Eldar on a spaceship doesn't make a lot of sense. Odd pairings, odd things going on. So I really, I think this is the most, tightly narrative focused box ever from Kill Team, including everything in the previous edition of the game, right? Let me know what you think. I think the narrative here is really tight. Like, you can always justify anything, right? Like, but you go back to Oxarius, it's like, oh yeah, orcs in an orc stronghold, fine, versus the Death Core, I guess. Why the Death Core? Could it have been Cast-Chan Orc Hunters? That would have looked cooler. Could it have been like Black Templars? That would have been cool. Like, there's loads of narrative choices. Nothing wrong with it being Krieg. I'm not saying everything has to be really tightly themed, but I think this is the first box where I've looked at it and I've gone, wow, yeah, that is an immaculately themed and presented box. And they really like it. It may not matter for a lot of people, I guess. If you're a very competitive player, you're immediately just looking at these big boxes and going like, oh, I want to strip it down into its component parts, and oh, cool, I'm getting a new kill team for my competitive play, or a new kill zone, this, that, and the other. And that's a fine way to engage with, and we are going to talk like that going forwards. That's a fine way to engage with and enjoy the product. But I do just think, actually, depending on a few things, depending on how this works, I think this could be like an awesome entry point for someone that wants to get into Kill Team. Now, obviously, we can't say that like internal balance is going to be important, right? Marines have been a bit overpowered, right? And there's things we're going to talk about that, and we have really hard to guess from the miniatures how the Necrons are going to play at all because they're weird. But I think this has the makings of being a really nice first box for someone to get into Kill Team with, which is great. So what is in this box? Now, this is interesting. From what we've seen, we're getting a new Necron Tomb World kill zone, the new Necron kill team, the new Death Watch kill team. You're also getting a Necron Warrior box, okay, the same one you can buy now from Games Workshop, in the same way that you got the was it Homagults or Termagults, whichever one it was, in the Typhon box. You're getting the usual, like the dossier, the little codex-style book thing with the rules and the lore, and things like that. Presumably also the rules for playing on the Tomb World, right? And then you've also got a deck of cards that are Tomb World event cards, okay? Tomb World event cards for narrative play. What is not in the box? There are three things missing from the box. We're not getting decks of unit cards for the two kill teams. We're not getting approved Ops 2025, and we're not getting universal equipment. Now, that's interesting in a couple of ways. So if you remember Hivestorm was interesting. So that was the launch box for the for this new edition, that included the approved ops deck and it included the Universal Equipment Pack. And then the individual kind of mid-season boxes did not repeat those things, but they did throw in the unit cards for the 2 kill teams. The fact that this is doing neither is a little bit vexing. Okay, so we're the unit cards, if indeed they're still going to do unit cards, they're going to be an add-on purchase, and they're like 20 quid a throw. That feels a little cheap from Games Workshop to not include those. And we haven't heard anything. We don't even truly know that Approved Ops 2025 exists. We're just supposing that it does. But that's also going to be a separate 25 or 20 quid purchase, I would imagine. And then Universal Equipment may not have changed, may have changed. We don't know. And so there may or may not be a new plastic kit coming for that. But either way, it's not in this box. Although I will talk about Universal Equipment a bit later on, right at the end of the presentation as well. So just to get that out of the way, let's get on with reviewing what we know about the contents. So we're going to start with the Deathwatch kill team. So these are the images that we've had shared from Warhammer community. Okay, now a really interesting thing with the Deathwatch kill team is it appears to be 11 named characters. Right, now I've got no doubt that this box set will also have an eye on 40k. I'm sure they'll get a rule set for Imperial agents, right? So I'm sure there'll be a more generic way of building them. But we have the Demolisher, so it looks like a melee specialist with a thunder hammer. Okay, we've got a Disruptor. So here's someone in Phobos armor with a fancy new piece of technology on his backpack there that's been painted green, picking out. So clearly that's doing something special. Okay, that's doing something specific. Yeah. We've got a marksman who looks for all the world like a generic Deathwatch Space Marine. He has got that bionic eye. Obviously, he's got like a little camera thing on his backpack, but they've all, if you look at them, every single one has some sort of extra thing on their backpack. His looks a bit different, so he's got that bright red sort of little autonomous targeter on there, so I'm sure he's going to have some interesting sort of semi-sniper rules, but he looks a bit like, we obviously we wanted the kit to be able to build them all with bolters, and then we ran out of space on the upgrade frame, so we'll just put on this tiny little bit, and he is the least special looking specialist, if that makes sense, right? It's probably just the head and that little different little shoulder mounted camera thing. But there's no generic warrior, so having him be your most generic looking guy and having him be the marksman is probably fine. We've got the Aegis that I actually really like. The Aegis, he looks kind of Horus Heresy adjacent. I'm actually a big fan of the shield there. I think he looks really, really cool. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. That's weirdly that's my pick of which is the nicest one. I really like that Aegis miniature. I think he's pretty cool. The Horde Slayer. So I just want to jump around for a minute. I want you to look at the Horde Slayer, and I want you to look at the Bombard just on the bottom row on the far right. Can you see how they are the same model? Right? They are the same miniature. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be 2 like unique squads of 5 mirrored. Okay, and I'm sure if we go through, we can find so like the gunner and the marksman are essentially the same miniature. The disruptor and the head taker, I'm sure, are the same torso and legs. Okay, some of them they've tried to fool us a little bit by rotating them, but I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Yeah, the Blade Master and the Aegis, different torsos, but the legs. No, the Blade Master and the Watch Sergeant are the same miniature, right? I think the Aegis It's the Aegis and the Demolisher, right? And then you've got the weird one that's the triple, which is the Breacher, that's sharing the same body as the Horde Slayer and the Bombard. I'll talk more about this on the next slide. They basically call that out in the article that you cannot build from a single kit a Breacher, a Horde Slayer, and a Bombard. You have to choose one to not build. So while there are 11 options for your team, there are 10 miniatures in the box. So we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm jumping the gun. On this slide, what I really just want to do is talk about the plastic. Okay, so the Horde Slayer, basically, this is the Horde Slayer and the Bombard are basically our heavy gunner, right? With a choice of gun, and they've got the two classic Deathwatch exclusive heavy weapons that Deathwatch have always had. So the Horde Slayer brings us the heavy bolter with the underslung heavy flamer, which I think is a really cool weapon, especially in the context of Kill Team, where flamers are basically terrible, but there are odd occasions where you're like, oh, actually, a flamer shot will be really good right here. So now you've got a guy who, look, like 4 days a week, can fire his heavy bolter, and then every once in a blue moon, when it becomes really relevant, he can let loose with the heavy flamer. I think that's really cool. The flexibility is really important. Got the Head Taker, who is a Reaver who is so bloodthirsty that instead of the really awesome AP1 pistol, he's instead gone for double knives. That's going to be his thing, okay? We've got the Blade Master, not your leader, right? He seems to be, judging by the paint job, I think the Blade Master is where we're going to find our Xenophage blade. That's the classic Deathwatch thing. So he has that Xeno, it's Necron. It's Necron, but with they don't actually say it's Necron, but it's one of those things where if you read between the lines in the lore, it's heavily implied that it's a Necron weapon. So his thing is he holds that. The gunner appears to be a Hellblaster, so that's cool. We've not had that kind of it. It should be a bit more potent than a regular plasma gun, right? It looks to be one of those Hellblaster guns. Now I will notice the gunner is just named Gunner and is not there. It is not named something like Plasma Annihilator or Armor Piercer, or all the others have got funny names. So it's possible, like we don't know. I did scan through the video. There's no sign of anything. It's possible that there are other builds for the gunner. He could have the big melter cannon thing that the Primaris Marines have now, or the Infernus flamethrower thing. Like, I'm not saying they are there. I'm just saying it's interesting to me that everyone else has got a cool name and the gunner is just the gunner. So maybe he has some options. I don't know. Then we got the Breacher, who appears to have the world's largest shotgun, which is pretty cool. And then we've got the Watch Sergeant, so I'm assuming he's going to be your leader. He looks to have a plasma pistol and a power sword. And then the Bombard, who has, of course, the frag cannon again, which is quite a famous Deathwatch only thing. So those are the miniatures. I think they look really cool. I think they're really, really nice looking models. I think they're going to be an absolute joy to have, to convert, to paint up. And we're going to talk about a couple of other things that we know about them. So first of all, I got the stuff that's copy-pasted from the Games Workshop from the Warhammer community website. So I'm going to read that for you dramatically, having picked out the bits that are relevant to the Deathwatch kill team. These kill teams are the ultimate weapons for conducting clandestine operations and critical missions behind enemy lines, so much so that the game is named after them. Each one is made up of carefully chosen specialists whose unique skills are best suited for the mission, and in the new Deathwatch kill team, you'll pick 5 from among 11 diverse candidates. So, it looks like, we know it's 10 models in the box. They tell us that later on. There are 11 possible specialists. You can't build all 3 of the Gravis guys. I'll read the text for that in a minute. But essentially, what's interesting is the way it says you pick 5 from 11 implies there's going to be no sort of restrictions on there. So you could see a world where, for example, it says, oh, you can pick one between the Horde Slayer and the Bombard in kind of your heavy gunner slot, right? And if they did that in the rules, then happy days, because you could build the Breacher and then you could build a heavy gunner effectively and magnetize the wrists, so you could swap between the two things, the Horde Slayer and the Bombard. But we don't know that that's going to be the way it goes, because it could be. I think it sounds likely that you get pretty well a free choice. I'm pretty sure you're going to be forced to take the Watch Sergeant, but it sounds from the way they phrased it, you're going to get to choose freely the other four dudes from your roster for each game, which is going to make the Death Watch, if they genuinely have, 11 specialists who are all good, and you can choose from them for each mission, it's going to make them one of the most flexible teams in the game. Because most teams in Kill Team either have they're either a fixed list, right? Or they're like, oh, well, you take all the specialists and maybe there's this argument that in this one situation you take a generic guy instead of this particular specialist, because when you play on Into the Dark, this one guy whose thing is climbing isn't particularly useful, right? Or you get teams where it's like, oh yeah, you can swap out between these two, but otherwise your list is fairly solid. Whereas with these, genuinely, and we haven't seen the rules yet, but genuinely, I could see it being like, oh right, first game, well, I'll take a Watch Sergeant and we'll want Into the Dark, so I'll go for and I'm against I'm against a Hordish team, so I'll go for my Horde Slayer. Obviously, right? I'll go for the Breacher. He looks like he'd be really good in that situation. Maybe I will go for some close combat power with the Head Taker and the Demolisher. And then the next game you could be on Volcus, right, against some kind of Space Marine team, when you're like, cool, well, I'll take a Watch Sergeant. I'm going to go for my Gunner with his heavy plasma gun. I'm going to go for the Blade Master again, because I want some kind of maybe he's got good AP on his Xenophage blade, right? I want the Aegis because I want somebody that can go toe to toe with like a Plague Marine in close combat and take some hits. And you're really going to have a lot of flexibility potentially if the rules are done right. It could be the rules are not cooked correctly, and people just look at it and go, well, these five are the best five, take them in nearly every game. But hopefully this could be one of the most flexible kill teams ever, which is going to make them a hard team to master, because especially if you're someone in a situation where you mainly play against one other person, they mainly play one particular kind of team. So if your mate is Space Marine Larry, and he likes to play Space Marine teams, and then you rock up with your Death Watch, and you can have really fun games, but you find there's some specialists that you've almost never used, and then you go to a tournament and your opponent's like, oh yeah, here's my Chaos Cult or whatever it is, and you're like, well, I know on paper I should now take this, this, and this, but actually I've never practiced with them because I don't have a diverse gaming group. I think there's a lot of people in that kind of situation, right? So let's keep reading. So this is basically what I was saying. We need to knock out sharpshooters from a distance, dual deadly leaders in close combat, or soak up enemy fire. That's tool for the job in the Deathwatch kill team. Only numbers 5 operatives. You get 10 in a box. You can build almost all the options. So the Gravis armored body can build 3 different operatives, of which you'll need to choose 2. I've mentioned that a couple of times already. And you choose you want to deploy according to mission parameters, and there are a lot of shoulder pads. So, like I've been saying, it looks like it's 2 copies of a 5-man kit. Each 5-man kit contains 3 regular bodies, a Gravis fella, and a Phobos fella. It looks like you've got, and they said this on the stream as well, you've got extensive extra bits, right? They mentioned that there was loads of choice of molded shoulder pads, including some from really obscure chapters, so that's going to be really interesting. and also it's probably going to double up on extra bits. So you're probably going to get enough bits to build two of all of those specialists, right? Depending on how they've done the kit, it could be a kill team upgrade frame that you get one copy of, and then two copies of what could be a 5-man Deathwatch kit for 40k, or they could all be sprued together, and then you get like so you get two awesome Thunderhammers, and two awesome shields, two awesome this, and two awesome that. We just don't quite know how it's going to be sprued out. Now, you could buy a box of heavy intercessors, right, to get your extra Gravis body, but I would hang fire because heavy intercessors are like a £42 kit, right? So, yes, you could. If you have a large kill team gaming group and you can find like, oh, well, me and my 4 friends all want a complete Deathwatch roster, and then you can split your box of 5 guys between you, then it makes sense to do it that way. Otherwise, you might be better employed waiting for the separate, like, build and paint what you got for now. Wait for the separate release. Especially if they release them in 5s. Ultimately, like buy another box of Deathwatch for 40k. If that comes down the line, if you don't want to wait that long. And I will say, by buying the heavy intercessors, you're not necessarily going to have like if you look at the Horde Slayer, the Breacher, and the Bombard, they all have this really big, like, I call them CCTV cameras, but they have this really big one, right? I'm willing to bet there's only 2 of those in the box, so you're going to miss this quite important looking iconic piece of the miniature. Whether that matters to you aesthetically, I suppose technically it might even matter to you from a rules-based perspective, because do you know, if you play by the letter of the rule, I can see the tip of your aerial, I'm shooting you, is actually adding a significant, it does look like it's adding a significant chunk of height to the miniature over and above these fellas that don't have that little extra like widget on top of their backpack. Again, how much you and your playgroup care about that in terms of the rules and things is a matter between you and your friends, but it is certainly something I'm going to point out in this generalist review, because a proportion, and I'm not getting into whether you should care or not, but a proportion of the community will care, so I'll flag that up for you as well. Okay. Like I say, depending on the team selection rules, maybe you could magnetize, maybe you won't be able to take the Horde Slayer and the Bombard at the same time, but probably you will, I think, I would guess. What else did they mention in the stream? I mentioned about the obscure chapters. I don't know if they're going to make... Like, I would have done, if I was doing Deathwatch, I would have made the chapters more of a thing. So I'd be like, oh, if you make someone an Imperial Fist, then they're slightly tough, and if you make someone a Blood Angel, they're slightly better at like close combat, and if you make someone a Dark Angel, they're slightly better at shooting your own men in the back. But like, depending on what you decide to do, I don't think they're going to do that. I think the choice of chapters is probably going to be purely aesthetic, which is probably for the best. Otherwise, what do you end up doing? Magnetizing all the different heads and shoulder pads so that you can make different people from different chapters for different matchups. Or realistically, people would just glue them together. Nobody models on their chaos marks for legionaries, do they? Although some people do. People want to play competitively, don't. So you could then use a token to say, today this guy is an Imperial Fist. Well, but his shoulder pad is a Space Wolf, but he's an Imperial Fist. So, yeah. But I don't think they're going to do that. They might. The only other thing that they said in the stream that I thought was interesting was they thought specialist ammunition. Now, they mentioned it being a once per turning point ability for one model. To me, that screams equipment, right? Because there's so much equipment that comes in that way, where it's like once per turning point, one model on your team may, and they talked about you getting to choose in like 5 kinds of ammo upgrade to have blast or piercing, or whatever you need it. Other people, both on my Discord and other YouTubers, have watched that, and the same thing that I watched, and they've gone, "Oh, that's going to be the team-wide rule." I'm sure they said it was like, if that's like the team-wide rule, it's like, oh, once per turning point, one model can do a fun thing. That's a bit of a lame team-wide rule, but it sounds more limited in scope to me, so it sounds like an equipment. But we'll see, won't we? I suppose, to be honest, the You know, there are some teams out there that have equipment that's so team defining it may as well be a team wide special rule. You'd never not take it, right? And there are some teams out there where actually their team wide rules are not really the main point of the team, for sure. Talk about the Necron kill team. So the Necron kill team gives us another kind of cryptech. This is the Geomancer, okay? The model is interesting. It reminds me a little bit, there was a Forge World model called a Tomb Stalker, and it was like a metal I used to be a Necron player back in the day, and it was like a metal millipede looking thing, and it looks like they've kind of looked at that, shrunk it down into miniature and gone, let's make a Canopec Cryptech, right? So that's your Geomancer. And then just like the Hierotex Circle team, you know, you've got your Cryptic, and you've got two little miniony things that run around doing stuff, the Reanimator and the Accelerator, which is exactly what the Hierotex Circle has, right? A Reanimator and Accelerator. So one's going to be a comms, and one's going to effectively, like, bring you guys back from the dead with a bit more alacrity. Okay, that's fine. And then, so far, it's so Hierotech for that half of the team. And then on the bottom row, so whereas in the Hierotech you have like then 5 immortals of various, basically you got 5 immortal bodies, and you could upgrade one to being the Apprentech, and then the others you divided between Death Marks and immortals as you liked. In this, you've got your Tomb Crawler. You get 2 of them. They are called, we'll look at the text in a minute. They are called out in the text as having those particular weapons. So I don't think they're optional. One has the make somebody disappear into another reality gun, which I'm guessing is the one on the left that's like a glowing orb, and one just has a cannon of some kind. And then you've got these 3 warriors. Why? Like, Necron Warrior is already the name of the Billy basic Necron Warrior. You know? So why they've just called these warriors, I'm not quite sure. These are a new thing. They are mooks of the highest order. They look like they have a gun. If I really squint at the photograph, it looks like the one on the left of these 3. So this one here looks to have a different gun. So this, whether it's just paint, but this gun's got a black nozzle. These 2 have silver nozzles. Is that just the heavy metal team? Like, one guy painted this, one guy painted this, one guy painted this, and they haven't quality controlled and checked that all of the gun in the same way? Or is this a different gun? It's difficult to tell without a proper profile view of these to see if there's any other differences, but it is potentially a difference there. I don't know. So let's look at the text. The tomb world is not, however, undefended, and within its darkened catacombs lurks the silent servants of a deadly geomancer, a stone-shaping cryptech awoken to correct cascading failures in the tomb's critical systems. Rather than raising slumbering Necrons to do their bidding, these masters of physical manipulation summon unending legions of Canopic Circle servants to repair structures, clear debris, and eradicate interlopers. Their firepower comes from a pair of tomb crawlers, hulking constructs that mount heavy weapons on top of their armored carapace. One can banish its victims to another dimension entirely. By contrast, the Macrosite warriors, they have got a different name. The Macrosite warriors are expendable drones that constantly return to the kill zone so long as there are fewer than 3 alive, and each individual unit is worth so little to the Geomancer they're ignored when scoring the opponent's kill ops. They also don't count for objectives that require to extract operatives, keep them alive. Get a few killed, it doesn't matter. So this is an 8 model team. Looks to me to be single box, fixed list, away you go, fill your boots. Of course, they could always say, hey, you could use all your Cryptex from the rest of the range again, like you could with Heretic Circle. I doubt they will. It's both a new take and not a new take, okay? So in some ways, I feel like it's quite similar to Hierotex Circle. It's a Cryptech like Hierotex Circle, and the 2 support drones like Hierotex Circle, and so that half of the team is the same, and then the difference is in the other 5 models, whereas the Hierotex Circle were like 5 mid-tier, suit sort of half elite things. This is 2 really elite, heavy looking things in the forms of the tomb crawlers, and then 3 mooks that can respawn that are probably really bad. Right? Beyond that, I think it's hard to say very much, because unlike with the Imperium, it's not because I do have a bias towards the Imperium, sure, because I prefer the Imperium, but it's also the case that you can talk a little bit about the Imperium and be like, well, that's a Thunder Hammer, we that's a Plasma Pistol, that's this, that's this from 40k, that's that. This is entirely new stuff from whole cloth. So it's very hard for me to sort of be like, oh, this is going to be the relative power level, this is what they're going to do. Right? The models look nice. I like them. Personally, for me, it's too similar to Hydrodeck Circle. I would have liked to see something that went more for the unending horde Necron. Like, I would have liked to see a team that was like some kind of, basically like Space Undead. So some kind of like a crypt deck that mainly focused on raising and buffing, and then just like 10 Necron warriors, right? Obviously a bit more to it than that, but like just Necron warriors that just slowly march forward and shoot their pathetic guns that don't die, right, and that get buffs when the crypt deck tries to do stuff to them. I think that would have been cool and different, and seems like the obvious design space for Necrons to me. Ironically, I think the new Servitor team is basically more like what I think a Necron team should be like. But this is another Necron team that's very much sort of in that same pseudo-elite weight bracket as the Hydrodeck Circle, if I can put it that way and still sound coherent, let me know. And then we got the new Tomb World, Kill Zone. So let's really look at this. First thing that jumps out is obviously this is Into the Dark 2.0. Now they said on the stream it doesn't replace Into the Dark, but I'm willing to bet that it does, at least in the terms of what approved ops is doing with its life. So we can try and work out here a little bit. We've got doors. So you can see my cursor. So here's an open door. Here's a closed door, right? So here's an open door. Here's a closed door, okay? And then here's a door with weird lightning in it. So there's going to be something going on with doors. Are they going to work differently? Which we can tell because we've seen doors in 3 different states. Okay. I can't immediately tell. That looks like opening the doors on the Galadar wasn't great. That looks like it might be kind of fiddly for play if you're actually changing the state of doors mid-game, pushing in and out those internal sections. I'm wondering if the ones with the sort of force field thing are going to be like, oh, you can walk through these, but you can't shoot through them, right? And so you can just walk through them without having to open them. You just pay your inch and walk through, and it's like but you can't shoot through it, right? Kind of like how shields in Star Wars tend to work, if I remember rightly, like that kind of effect. That could be cool. But then you have got some more traditional looking doors as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works. Other than that, what we do, we look at it, we got some interesting scatter. So just look at the big picture for a minute. We've got what I think looks like some pretty generic, like that is just some cover there, right? And then same here, that looks like a barricade, that looks like a barricade, that's a slightly differently shaped barricade, that looks like some slightly differently shaped barricade stuff. And then we've got some other bits that look more narrative to me. So we've got the sarcophagus thing here, and we've got this, which I'm assuming is the teleport pad right here. And my initial punt would be that these 2 bits are for narrative, but there's some of these other more blocky, just terrain pieces There's going to be some scatter in there, which is going to be helpful for people. I know Can You Roll a Crit's constantly wibbling about how the new Gallowdark maps with these wide open spaces require more scatter terrain. So Games Workshop, I don't play high level kill team enough to have an opinion, and I just play Marines and walk forwards. But basically what I'm trying to say is the people who care about the health of the game competitively have been saying, "Oh, we need scatter terrain in these new big rooms that you've made." Because to clarify, when Into the Dark first came out, the official layouts were quite claustrophobic, and in this edition's version of Into the Dark layouts that we've had for a year, they've been quite open, and we can see on the board if that is one of the official layouts, which it may not be. It may just have been a photographer going, I'm going to put the heavy metal thing together in a way I think looks cool and take a photo and pile all the stuff onto the board. Sure, it might be that. But if it is one of the official layouts, again, it looks quite open, so maybe that is some scatter for that purpose. We just don't know. And then it looks like we've also got a wall here. Now, they did this with one of the narrative sets for the Gallowdark. I forget which one, where you had walls that you could blow holes in, and then you could put the thing back in and blow holes. I don't know if that is going to be a narrative-only wall section? Potentially. Potentially, right? Is that a bit too mechanically weird for the approved ops form of the game? Who can say? Right, we really don't know. And then we've got, it looks like some of these individual Necron things, they look functional because they're being used here as end caps to cover up in some of the layouts. It looks like ugly looking bits where you'd have one of these walls just floating in dead space. So I'm guessing, we can't see the back side of this, but I'm guessing it kind of fills in that shape there for where you've got these walls jutting out. Right, let's have another little look here. Yeah, so the text. Kill Team Tomb World sees the game return to close quarters gameplay pioneered in Kill Team Into the Dark, this time with all new Necron-themed kill zone, complete with shimmering portals, teleportation paths, and regenerating walls. So, similar to Into the Dark. Now, they did say in the stream two things. It does not replace Into the Dark, is what they said, or it doesn't necessarily replace Into the Dark, which I think means, hey, you can still use Into the Dark at home or whatever, but I bet when Approved Ops 2025 rears its head, we're going to get official layouts for the Tomb World, and we're not going to get official layouts for Into the Dark. Now, look, right, I listen to a lot of Glass Half Dead. I know he's been flying the flag for, hey, Approved Ops isn't the only way to play, or indeed the main way to play. I know other people very much view Approved Ops as the main or only way to play. And I know that there's a third set of people who, and again, this would be like the Can You Roll a Crit like mentality, because what he did was he put out a terrain pack for, like, yeah, we're going to play Approved Ops sort of only, and we're not going to care about narrative, but for, I think, practical reasons, in some tournament circuits, we want layouts to use last season's terrain because we've paid for, bought, painted, etc. last season's terrain. And so I can totally see that it's not going to be the narrative people. I don't think it's not going to be the narrative people who are the big vanguard of, oh yeah, let's keep using Into the Dark, it's so cool. It's going to be TOs, not all of them, right? Because some communities are really good at providing terrain, brand new terrain, really quickly, staggeringly quickly. It's going to be TOs who will probably look to someone like Crit to go, hey, so we got like 15 sets of painted Into the Dark, and we don't quite feel like putting them in a bin, and we're a tournament circuit, so we don't quite feel like saying, oh, this is fun for, like, if you're a guy, I have Into the Dark, I'm not stressed, I'll use it. Potentially for Kill Team, probably not. But if I go back to play 40k at any point, and almost play boarding actions, it's still there for that. Sure, be interesting to see how Horus Heresy or Mortalis goes and things like this. But I think officially, right, approved ops is probably gonna um, move over to the Tool World stuff. But I will say, Warhammer World isn't immune to Warhammer World had used Cryak's Octarius map packs, right? Warhammer World events team do not actually. You'd think maybe they did. They don't actually have infinite budget. They don't actually just get. You think, ironically, in a smaller company, they probably have an events team that was better resourced because the events team would just walk in and go, okay, cool, we're just going to take 20 sets from the production line and put them into events. That makes sense. Whereas it being Games Workshop, they have an internal budget and they have to notionally spend their internal budget at like retail price and then bill it against their department and all the other weird corporate wankery that we know Games Workshop does. And so they won't actually have that many sets of the new stuff. And so they're probably going to be quite likely to find ways of continuing to use the Gallodark. So I think the Gallodark is going to survive in one way or another. But I also think for the people who want that purist, I don't think they'll have it at Worlds, basically. And so for the people who want to set up their tournament such as it emulates Worlds, right, and arguably if you are a golden ticket event, that's kind of what you seek to do, then I think we're going to see mainly Tool World going on. I've rambled about this stuff far too long. I don't really care that much, but to get all my feelings out there, right? Teleportation pads, regenerating walls, shimmering portals. How much of this is going to be narrative only, and how much of this will feature in the approved ops version, that competitive match play version, which I'm trying to call approved ops because that's what it is, and not competitive play or match play. How much of those things will feature? I'm guessing the teleportation pads won't. The regenerating walls, probably not. The shimmering portals, I don't know if they're going to be a key. They might be a key part of the experience because they probably have changed how doors work, I think. Because like doors were a pain point in Into the Dark, right? If you're playing, there's just certain teams where if you're playing, you just can't, right? Like Wrecker Crew, you just can't get through the door and move up the field. You don't have the right number of APL. It doesn't work. But I'm hoping that the Billy basic scatter terrain, those to go back to remind you, all these kind of khaki looking block pieces, I'm hoping that makes it through because that should diversify it and make it a bit different to Into the Dark. And a lot of people that are better at Kill Team than me have been like, yeah, this is what the format really needs. So hopefully you get that. Gonna keep reading because we're gonna get to the bit that I'm most out of this whole announcement. This next paragraph is the bit that I'm most excited about. Like the previous close quarters terrain in Killzone Gallodark, Killzone Tomb World is a fully modular set of walls, doors, and pillars you can use with hundreds of unique layouts that can be taken apart and rearranged with the drop of a hat. My word, if they really have improved this set over Into the Dark from an engineering standpoint, right? So it actually does just go bish, 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 bish. It's all together, right? And it all just stands up and holds its own weight. And there's not weird, annoying little interleaving clips on the bottom that have to be in the right orientation, or everything kind of bends upwards or around. And there's things, and half the sets you find in the wild need to have the plugs filed down, but not all of them, because if you're from an earlier print run, then you're this and that. And stupid little caps that you have to put on top. If they've solved all of that, this is the best part of the box. If I can actually play Into the Dark after work when Zimbad comes out of my house and I'm like, oh, do you want to play Into the Dark? And it's not like, no, because I don't want to play. I don't want to spend 40 minutes now doing frustrating Jenga with the Into the Dark set. If we can just kind of literally go, yeah, flip, 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 it's done. This will be the best part of the box. Really, really good if it pans out, right? Because I can drop hat pretty quickly, time it. Here's the hat, here's me removing it from head height while I am sat down. So let's say up here 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds. Okay, that is the drop of a hat. Obviously I'm being silly, but you're gonna use an idiom. New elements make the kill zone feel distinctly Necron, such as breached walls reforming as microscopic maintenance drones continue their aeons-long vigil, heedless of the battles around them. There's even a host of Necron warriors snoozing in the wall alcoves. So, I'm going to get onto it in a minute. We know you get a box of Necron warriors in the box, so I'm guessing that the walls with Necrons on will be decorative in approved ops, but in narrative play are going to be spawn points for Necrons, which is pretty cool. The idea that the breachable wall segment can breach and then heal itself is pretty interesting, but that makes it sound like is it either effectively a thing you can shoot and then you can move through and then the next turning point is healed, in which case I can kind of see it making it into competitive play potentially, but it could easily be a thing where, oh, you draw this particular card, you know, maintenance drones, repair all breaches, right? In which case it's a narrative thing. Big questions are, have they changed how doors work mechanically now? I hope so, because the rules around the doors in they felt really clunky. They felt really, really clunky, right? I would just make them work like access points in Volcus, but maybe that's too liberal for some people. I don't know. Other bits. So, much like Kill Team Typhon, the box includes a full unit of NPO miniatures. In this case, 10 Necron Warriors and 3 Scarab Swarms. These can be used in new joint ops and adversary ops mission packs, both as an enemy for cooperative players or an obstacle for competitive games. Added to the 2 kill teams, that makes a hefty 31 miniatures before you even start the terrain. Right, so a couple of things. I have never played anything other than approved ops in Kill Team. Not because I'm an elite tournament grinder, just because I'm tired, right? And new rules, to me, does not necessarily equal more fun, okay? Somebody tell me, Matthew Poole, you're probably watching this video, can you let me know, I know joint ops has been a thing, is adversary ops a new thing, or was that always in there? Just this idea of or an obstacle for competitive games. They're not actually insinuating that we would play with NPOs in by competitive, they just mean PvP, player versus player, but still a narrative game, right? Right, that's how that works. I hate this last sentence. Added to the 2 kill teams, that makes a hefty 31 miniatures before you even start with terrain. That just sounds like I'm being primed to accept a high price for this box, doesn't it? It's like, oh yeah, we've taken out £40 worth of value compared to like the in terms of you've lost the whichever way you want to slice it, you either lost the approved ops. Someone in the street swearing. Oh, can't hear that, guys. Either welcome to Essex. Either you've missed the approved ops pack and the terrain from Hivestorm, or you've missed the 2 sets of Kill Team cards from the later releases since Hivestorm. So to whip away that like 40 quid worth of value and then say, oh, but it's okay, you're getting a box of 6-year-old Necron warriors that most of you don't want. Right, and that's basically free for Games Workshop. The thing, and I've said this before in many a video, the thing to understand about Games Workshop's business model is there's a massive development cost for a squad of new miniatures, right? Massive cost. You've got to do the concepting, you've got to do the design work, you've got to do, and the most expensive part, because they don't pay their creatives enough, you've got to tool the molds, right? Because they do have to pay their engineers enough, because there's not enough of that talent left in the country, right? So you tool your molds. Well, once you've done all of that, the actual marginal cost of pressing out the new plastics, it's a well-known fact. It's something you should teach Games Workshop store managers is not to chase after shoplifters. And the analogy that I believe used to be in the official training packet was the sprues in a box are worth less to the company than the cardboard box that they're in. That's how little each thing is valued. Not because it doesn't cost them a lot of money to create and do all the things, but it's like buying, you buy a DVD. You go and buy, kids don't buy DVDs anymore, but bear with me, right? You go and buy a DVD of a film, you know that the money that you're paying does not relate to the plastic disc, right? It's the same thing. The money you're paying does not relate to the model kit. It relates to the creative process and the engineering process behind creating it, right? So therefore, the reason that I recapped all that for you just then, when they do something like this, where they shovel in, I really hope the mic's not picking that up, where they shovel in an older kit, and they put it in there, and it's not even in its original box or anything. That's basically free for them. So for them to just shovel in old stuff and then say, 31 miniatures, I just worry that I'm being primed for an expensive box. Let's look at the token sheet. Let's look at the token sheet, because there's some very interesting stuff on here. Now, I'm not cool like cool content creators to peer at the token sheet and be like, there's these symbols and these are going to do a thing. I've got no idea. But what I have noticed, look here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're giving us copies of the markers for a lot of the universal equipment. Right, there's the ammo, the minefield, comms relay, frag grenades, and smoke grenades. Question: does this mean that crack grenades are going? Because there used to be that's the frag grenade token, and there used to be a separate token that you could have out to count up your crack grenades. I'm sure of it, and it was like a crack grenade shape, because you could say I want 1 frag, 1 crack. And likewise, wasn't there a separate stun grenade token? Maybe those things are good. Maybe the tokens are double-sided. That could also be the answer, right? Maybe you get 2 of these sheets and the tokens for the grenades are double-sided with a different grenade on the other side. But I found that interesting just because it implies that at least those 5 equipment options are staying with us. And I think they're going towards trying to make this at least you don't get approved ops, and you don't get the models for equipment, so you don't get barricades, heavy barricades, ladders you don't need if you're playing on the Necron Tomb world, so ladders are irrelevant. But I think they're trying to make this a decent fist of a starter set for a new player. I think you could buy this, especially if you're younger, you're like 13, 14. I think you can buy this with a mate, split it in half, play games, have a great time, have a great introduction for Kill Team. I think that's what they're aiming for, and that's pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. That's it. So let me know in the comments, are you excited for Tomb World? I am, right? Honestly, the bit I'm most excited for at this precise moment is the new kill zone. Easier to put together, a little bit of an update for the rules for Into the Dark, which I always found have these few little negative play experience moments, these few little pain moments about around doors and lurking around them and not committing into rooms and things like this. I do think the Death Watch look really cool. My biggest problem is that everybody and their dog thinks the Death Watch look really cool. Zimbad, who, if I'm going to play much Kill Team, it's going to be against him. He's almost certain to go, oh yes, Death Watch, I'm going to do them, and I'm going to want to play them a fair old bunch for a while, and that tempers my enthusiasm because no one wants to play mirror match after mirror match against their main single opponent, right? I know Death Watch are going to be really, really popular with a lot of people. And that maybe it's the hipster in me that's like, well, yeah, but they will be cool to build and have paint. Like, oh my god, what's the point of that Space Marine Heroes team that they trailed? That's got like, oh, we've got our Phobos guys and we've got our regular guys, and oh, you mean like a lame version of Deathwatch? Shut up. We'll see. The Necrons are okay. And the rules might make them exciting. They don't excite me particularly. I want my Necrons to be Undying Legions. Right, I'm going to wrap this up because they've started screaming in the road again. That's good. But do like, subscribe, comment, etc. Consider joining the Discord. And a big thank you to all my members, especially to Alex, who subscribed at the very highest tier and gives me quite a phenomenal amount of money every single month. So really appreciate it, Alex. Hopefully there'll be another video tomorrow. I can't really say what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing some stuff next week that's potentially onerous and difficult to quantify and predict how tired or busy I'll actually be with it. And I'm going to have to leave it there, frustratingly. But I'm hoping to I've got loads of videos I want to do. If you want me to do a video, it's important. If you want me to do a video where, look, the channel is mainly for Kill Team and Shatterpoint at this point. Those are the two games I cover in depth. But if you want me to do a video where I talk about like my literally just my spit takes on the Votan, the new Khemri, the new Space Marine Heroes. What else did they even announce? There's some tiny tanks that I can't believe anybody cares about, and Horus Heresy, bits and bobs, all the stuff other than Kill Team that was in the big summer preview. If you want that video, because I'm kind of on the fence, it'll be a kind of a short one and kind of a lull, because I don't have anything important to say about any of those things other than I think this is cool. I think this is a bit lame, right? Let me know if you want that. Otherwise, I was at a Shatterpoint tournament yesterday, so I got to do a tournament report. I've still got to do a video about yonder Delta Squad for Shatterpoint as well. That's news. And then we're going to get a Kill Team balanced data slate next week. That was just confirmed on Warhammer Community. So that'll be another video this week as well. So loads of stuff that needs to get done. Not sure how much time I'm going to have to do it, but there we go. And then let me know if you want that Warhammer summer wrap-up video as well. All right. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time. Cheery, 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 cheery. Bye, 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 goodbye, bye, bye.